So thank you very much for taking this course. I really spent a lot of time researching all the material, going through a lot of literature, over 100 scientific papers published during the year actually on the COVID-19. So, I really want to make this a great course and as accurate as possible. So let's get started. First of all, what is the new coronavirus? Coronaviruses were first discovered in the 1960s. It is a family of viruses of medium size and which have a distinctive morphology with this characteristic corona, which gives them this very specific look, a little bit like the corona of the sun. And actually that's the reason why it was called corona in the beginning, because it reminded the first scientists who discovered this kind of viruses of the corona of the sun. If you look at the sun, I don't recommend looking directly in the sun, though it's very bad for the eyes. Don't do that. But if you use protective eyewear and you carefully look at the sun, you will see, sometimes you can see this kind of corona on the surface. So that's what it is. So these viruses contain a RNA strand, and I'm going to explain in the next slide what is a RNA. The RNA is basically a very long molecule, complex molecule, which contains the genetic code of the genome. And this is what you see here on this picture inside the circle, the white circle. So this is the RNA molecule. Next, you have a membrane which envelopes this RNA. This is the white circle that you see around it, and this is basically a layer which envelopes the RNA strand to protect it. Okay, it acts as a protective layer. If you look at the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and we're going to have a look at the specifically at the COVID-2 virus very soon, and I will even show you some very, very cool pictures about it. The membrane is really made of a double layer of lipids and proteins. And finally, we have these very characteristic spike S glycoproteins on the outside of the layer, as you can see in red here. So these are the spikes which are characteristic and which enable the virus to enter cells. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to explain how it works in the next lecture. Let's have a look at what is a RNA. I just said that the coronavirus contains a RNA. RNA means ribonucleic acid. And this is basically a large molecule, a complex molecule, which carries genetic information. So let's have a look here on this picture. As you can see, on the left side, you have this helicoidal RNA molecule, which is what the virus is, basically the genetic code of the virus. And this type of molecules are made of a series of 4 nucleobases called cytosine, guanine, adenine, and uracil, often referred to as C, G, A, and U. As you can see on the left side, you have an example of what these molecules look like. And by comparison, on the right side of the picture, you can see a DNA strand, which is very similar to RNA, except that it is a double helix. So it's like having 2 RNAs together, which forms a double helix. So the virus is a single strand RNA molecule, whereas DNA is a double strand. So to be perfectly correct, the nucleobases are not exactly the same in DNA. The uracil in RNA is replaced by a different nucleobase called thymine in DNA. It is interesting to see as well that SARS-CoV-2 is genetically very similar to the first SARS-CoV virus, which causes similar respiratory illnesses.